All right, what's up, you guys? Welcome on this lovely Thursday SHARKNEWZ live edition. How is everybody doing tonight? Thank you so much for joining on a double whammy, 2 live streams this week. And man, there was just so much going on in the sense of so much going on in the world of G.I. Joe, not necessarily figure related, but mostly the Haslab, which will be the most exciting topic of tonight's stream because that's pretty much the only topic I have for tonight. How is everyone doing today? Thank you everyone who's joining in on the chat right now and everyone who will be joining in later. And shout out to everybody who's going to be watching later. You guys are just as important as those that are watching live. Yes, Joe Bits, this is live. Let me just catch up with the chat from the beginning because I know Russell Terrell, ever since Russell Terrell made that comment last stream about me taking a few minutes before the stream actually starts, that's 100% true. I do want to share that sometimes it makes it a little harder for me to respond to everyone's comments on an actual like SHARKNEWZ video, but when I go live, I like to read roughly everyone's comments because that's my only way I can interact with you personally and one-on-one compared to trying to get through all these comments on the SHARKNEWZ video. And you know, some videos don't really get much comments, which is fine, but others, when there's like over like 70 or 100 comments, I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be wild to get through to type all of it. So that's why I like to go live, and it's kind of like a one-on-one conversation with the subscribers. But anyways, so Alan says he's gonna be at work, but I know Alan always catches the replay, so thank you, Alan. I know you're a great supporter of the channel, so thank you. Mike and Nikki say they could do a snow jobbery issue as the Whiteout NIGHTFORCE. Yes, make sure you save all your thoughts for when we get to the segment of figures, so stay tuned for that. Pixel Forge says Arctic Trooper. Tim Cass says I can't afford it, therefore no. Hang in there, man. I'm sure at some point there will be somebody out there on eBay that's going to want to get rid of their Haslab or maybe their figures, so there's a really good chance you might be able to find it probably cheaper. Who knows? It's possible. Cliff Doc says Quinn as Road Pig's body. Oh yeah, we'll get to that one. Chris Yule, welcome. D Sanchez, welcome. Russell Terrell says he has to wait 2 more years for a Mobat. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much the consensus of not all, but a good amount of people who are kind of disappointed with the Haslab reveal, or in the sense of what we're speculating it to be. And the reason is that while we're on the subject of Haslabs, because that's pretty much the whole topic of tonight's stream, apparently there's a lot of collectors out there who, you know, would prefer like a Mobat or a Mauler, or even if they did a Cobra vehicle, something else, or like something water related. But since the Joe team is heading in the snow territory, that kind of makes it a bit tricky. Now, I'm not saying that it's not going to fund. I'm sure it's going to fund, and you know, because the GI Joe Classified is one of the strongest brands Hasbro owns. But when it comes to photography and collectors who like taking their vehicles outside to do some cool photos and just to overall mess around with the figures and the vehicles, a lot of people that I've read comments on are stating that they don't really live anywhere near the snow area, or they don't live in a, you know, state where it snows, or because of global warming we don't really get much snowstorms. Therefore, it's going to be very hard to take photos of a snow vehicle when it's like 90 degrees outside. Of course, we can use our imagination, as Mr. Sampson and I had a conversation on Instagram. You know, back in the day when we would have snow vehicles, the only way to kind of, you know, if our parents didn't allow us to go outside, we would take like white bed sheets and kind of use our imagination. But a lot of times, I think as you get older, your imagination kind of burns out a bit, so people probably prefer actual snow. You know, they do have those cans where you get those fake snow and stuff, but it's a very tricky scenario having a snow vehicle. But what's up, A. Romo, Derek Holloman, Benedict, Robert Wantlin, so many legends here on the channel. Thank you guys for joining. Steve Galama, welcome. I think this is your first time here. He says, is this the Haslab officially a Snowcat? Been busy with work the last few days. So it's about 99.9% confirmed it's going to be a Snowcat, unless they really pull a sneaky one on us and it's not a Snowcat and ends up being the Avalanche with cold front. That would be pretty funny, but otherwise they gave more than enough indication that it's going to be a Snowcat, and we'll get to that in a short bit. Couch Boy says hopefully no patches, pins, buttons, pencils, and erasers. You know, one of the funnier tiers could easily be, we could have, you know, the GI Joe team could easily give us, you know, socks. They can give us mittens, a snow hat as one of the tiers, and that would actually be freaking hilarious. Derek, welcome. Robert says Shark is pulling a fast one on us like the Joe fan stream. Yeah, I mean, initially I was planning to do 2 streams this week anyway, because the one last time a day ago was to make up for last week, but it was just so happened to be that even today they announced the fan stream, which we'll get into in a few seconds. But everything's going well. Thank you, A. Romo, Wilfredo. Let me see here. Sorry, I'm just catching up with the chat as always. BD Bonzi, what's going on? Steve says, I like SHARKNEWZ out of all the Joe social media people. He is brief and to the point. Thank you so much, Steve. That really does mean a lot to me. I appreciate that. The whole emphasis of SHARKNEWZ in general was just, listen, you guys have things to do. I have things to do. It doesn't take anyone more. It shouldn't take anyone more than 24 to 40 minutes to tell you news that you need to know in under 5 minutes. I mean, obviously it's YouTube. People want to make their money. They want to spend at least 40 minutes talking about something that will take them 2 minutes to do. But I'm one of those where it's like, listen, we all got shit to do. I respect your time, and therefore I'm going to give you exactly what you need to know in under 5 minutes. But thank you so much, Steve, man. I really do appreciate that. Shout out to Craig N with the shark emojis. What's up, Miss the Legend? How's it going? Couch Boy says hopefully 4 figures and $300 or $350 at most. Yes, we'll talk about prices shortly. A Romo, Michael Carter, I think this is your first time here. Welcome to the chat. Joshua, what's up? Sorry, Joshua, I was going to respond to your email earlier. I didn't get a chance to, but I will respond to it later tonight. But it says, let it snow, let it snow. Yeah, man, it's freaking snowing in July. That's going to be great. BD Bonzi says, don't forget to hit the like button. Yes, for sure. Holy shit, we're already at 30 likes and the stream just started. Man, you guys are freaking amazing. All right. Because a lot of you were saying that I was lowballing my likes last time, let's give it 10 more, just because I kind of want to gradually increase. So tonight's stream, let's make it 60 likes for tonight's goal. If we can make it, that'd be great. Last time we had 50 or 55, I don't remember the initial goal, but which we did, thankfully. So if we can do 60 tonight, let's see if we can make it happen. Timothy James, what's up? Thank you so much for joining. Title Manishir, how's it going, brother? Thank you so much for joining. 2 live streams in 1 week. Shark has done more YOJOEJUNE than Hasbro. Listen, man, I'm much as a Joe fan as any other Joe collector out there. I love listen, like behind me you can see a whole shelf of figures. It's probably a little hard to see, but GI Joe was really one of the first brands that made me appreciate and enjoy collecting. Obviously, I have so many other brands that I love talking about and love collecting as well, but if I really were to pinpoint what brand really got me into like enjoying collecting the most, it's definitely going to be GI Joe. And you know, a good maybe one day in the future I'll show you this cool little box art that I have. But in my attic, my parents actually saved one of these drawings where when I think I was like 7 years old or 8 years old, and I have this drawing of a blueprint, and it said like sharks dream of working at Hasbro, and like it's like all these squares, and I would have like a Cobra room and a GI Joe room, and obviously it's like a 7-year-old drawing, but my parents or my father thought it was pretty funny to see me like at that age with such a, you know, love for the GI Joe brand. He was like, yeah, this is so crazy that at the age of 7 or 8 you wanted to work for Hasbro, and you already drew like a blueprint of where your office was going to be and how you were going to have like a toy room and this and that. And I was like, and it's one of the coolest drawings that I did back then, so that will tell you how much I like it. Malcolm, how's it going? Thank you so much for joining. Reg325 is going well. Tagworm, what's up with the shark emojis? Russell says 90 likes. Maybe some point in the future, but we're gonna go with 60 tonight. Malcolm says I'm good. Yeah. One of the funnier comments was, I believe somebody wrote on the one of the SHARKNEWZ videos was like, man, I came on this page to see what all the comments are, and I see all these grown men complaining about toys. It's like, you all need to touch grass. I find those comments absolutely hilarious. You're gonna have to adapt and overcome, says Tagworm. Christopher Bouchard says, can't wait to see this new Haslab. Hell yeah. Roland Max says, what's up fam? What's up Roland? Thank you so much for joining. Sorry, I'm catching up with the chat. I'm so behind. Tim Cass says, why wasn't Cobra's version of the Mobat called the Cat? You know, there's actually well, I don't know why it's not called the Cat, but there actually is a Cobra vehicle. I think it's called the Cat something, but it's like a, no, there actually is, right? There's something, there was similar. There was like a red and black tank and it said something Cat. I don't remember if that's proper, but someone correct me if I'm wrong. Joshua says you could just photograph it on the rocks, throw some salts and rocks, and really, if it really bothers you. Shenandoah Joes, welcome to the chat. I think this is your first time here. Says I'm with you on the police officer. Couchboy says maybe with real life wars all over, they dropped it and didn't drop. Polar Battle Bear. Oh, Sabotage. Shout out to Sabotage X88. Welcome. Joe Barrett says, hey Shark, glad to be here. Thank you so much, Joe, man. Good to have you here. Jeffrey Jackson, I think you're new to the channel or the chat. Thank you so much for joining. Tagworm says 100 woots. What do you mean 100 woots? I don't know what 100 woots is. Okay, hold on, let's see. Okay, so for those that don't know, what ended up happening was earlier or later this afternoon, we had an official Hasbro announcement that there was going to be another GI Joe fan stream event, which will be held this Monday on June 30th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, for those that didn't get a chance to see the GI Joe Classified Haslab Rattler unboxing, I was going to put up images to talk about the Rattler, but I figured a lot of you probably don't want to get spoiled by the, you know, the images of the figures and stuff, because you guys want to enjoy the unboxing and the excitement yourself. So I guess I kind of just disregarded that that segment of tonight's live stream, because I know a lot of you were anticipating it for an entire year. So there's no point in me, you know, going over the Hasbro stream. And, you know, I mean, we could talk about it, but I want you guys to really enjoy it and be excited for it rather than, you know, kind of spoiling what it looks like. But anyways, so at the end of the live stream, it's kind of what we discussed about at the end of my stream, where I said we're pretty much sure, or we were guaranteed to some point, that they were most likely not going to reveal the actual new Haslab, but they were going to talk about it. And my guess was correct. In the last like 5 seconds of the stream, they they were talking about all these random codes. Emily was talking about her cat that hates the cold, and then Lenny said something about a storm, and then she said it's going to be cool. We previously already had the term chill, so with all these words combined together, it was kind of like a subtle no-brainer that it was like 99.9% a cat. Now, unless they're completely trolling us, then that would be I would prefer it, but if not, then it is what it is. However, you know, the fact that Emily went on and she was just like, yeah, my cat really hates like the cold and blah blah blah, or like something with snow, I was like, well, looks pretty likely it's going to be a snowcat. So that's another interesting thing about having it being a snowcat, is that most of you were sharing in the comments before that the snowcat was roughly as big as the his tank, so it wouldn't be too surprising for them to you know, make it bigger. But according to the socials, one of the famous leakers online, JT Khan, he already posted 2 leaks of the snowcat vehicle, and one of the photos has the vamp behind it. Now the angles are a bit off, so I'm not going to post those photos here on the stream, but if you want to check on Facebook on any of the G.I. Joe groups, you can see that one of the collectors named JT Khan posted the leak of the snowcat already. So that kind of gives it like 100% confirmation that it is the snowcat. But based on the photos, from what I remember, the missile, one of the missiles is orange, and the thing that a lot of collectors were kind of, I don't want to say bummed about, but they were more cautious because they were assuming or thinking like, you know, the snowcat being more of a 2-seater, like where are we going to fit all of their characters, etc., etc. So there could be multiple reasons for what they can really do to switch up this Haslab. They could really just you know, give us the classic style, but also update it to a point where we can fit more Joes on it, or they could probably already just give us exactly what it is but bigger, just like how the his tank is, or they can kind of give us something a little bit new. But I don't think they're going to be very I don't think it can be I don't know what I'm saying, like I don't think it'll be that updated, but it should keep in unison with the original aesthetic, so hopefully it's not too much of a departure. All right, let's see here. Shout out to Rachel. Rachel is my right hand person in my streams, who always corrects me when I'm wrong. So thank you so much, Rachel. She says yes, the Crimson Attack tank, or the cat, there you go, was a Sears exclusive recolored Mobat. See, I knew it. I remember I did the video on that. I just don't remember what the actual name. But Rachel with the win. Thank you. Julianari, welcome, says, hey Shark, a Ski-Doo would be a good tier instead of a figure. A what? But welcome, Julianari, to the chat. I'm hoping oh, okay, I read that one. Malcolm says Hasbro should be paying you, Shark. You know, I remember somebody once said, like, why don't I interview Hasbro? It's not so much that I technically can't, because I can probably get in touch with them through emails and probably do an interview with them if I could. But at the end of the day, they're not going to answer the real questions that I want to ask, because if you guys have seen previous G.I. Joe live stream questions, you know, from other YouTubers, it's always like, what's your favorite Cobra? What's your favorite Joe? Who's your favorite, what's your favorite color? You know, what kind of toppings do you like on your pizza? And it's just like bullshit questions. And, you know, if like, they're obviously not going to answer any like main questions, but that's why I don't do it. Because if I were to ask them questions, they were, I would be like, where's Hooded Cobra Commander? Where's the October Guard? You know, stuff like that. So that's why it's best I just don't. But thank you for that comment, Malcolm. Xenu Prime says, wish they could surprise us with a Snowcat Wolf 2-pack. So the thing that I find interesting about the Wolf 2-pack is the Wolf would have to come with Ice Viper, and since this is a Joe vehicle, I don't think that they would include any Cobra related characters. So you know, that would kind of make it a bit weird, but it is what it is. Chris Oliver says, "What's up? I'll take a Snowcat and a few other vehicles." Well, in that theme. Yeah. Robert says perfect, but okay. So I think tonight's stream is going to be a little bit more on the shorter side because, again, since they announced that the stream will be on Monday, June 30th, it just gives me more reasons to live stream next week as well. So that's going to be pretty fun and exciting. Lance Keenhole says, "Can't wait to get my ramen tank and bridge layer." Dude, I saw a photo of the ramen. Was it the ramen one? No, the gridiron phalanx. I was like, holy shit, that thing looks absolutely insane. You know, there's some collectors that don't want to wait years and years for their vehicles, and there's these other third-party companies that are kind of doing a fantastic job. Sure, they're costing a lot more, but you know, the detail and the style of the vehicles kind of speak volumes. Not to say that the Haslabs aren't great, but you see that there's a lot more detail that I guess Ramen Toys or even Gridiron Studios put into their vehicles compared to traditionally the Hasbro team. So yeah. All right, so anyways, A Romo says 49 likes. All right, we'll get there. We'll get to 60 at some point. All good. All right, so we'll come back to this Monday, June 30th. So just keep in mind for the date that we will see the Haslab, whatever, supposed Snowcat unboxing. But that should be fun. Delpho Nito, welcome to the chat, says Hooded Cobra Commander and October Guard with the geopolitical crisis we are living in. That would be a surprise. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why they're not doing it. Now, I don't know how many Star Wars fans we have here or Marvel Legends fans we have here in the chat, but I was going to do a post on my page like last week or 2 weeks ago. You know, Star Wars released a quick side segment. Star Wars released a 4-pack stormtroopers. I don't know if that's what you call them. You know, and they all had white hoods, and I was just like, holy shit, like that's literally Cobra Commander in white, technically. You know, Marvel Legends did that Baron Zemo figure that's like Cobra Commander but in purple. So I remember I talked to Christopher Bouchard about this on Instagram, and you know, we were talking about why can't they really do a Hooded Cobra Commander, and we're just like, at the end of the day, it's not a, you know, if Star Wars is doing it, Marvel Legends is doing it, it's not technically a Hasbro thing. It's really just a G.I. Joe thing. So when or why, who ruined it for G.I. Joe, I don't know. Maybe because G.I. Joe is like a military brand and everyone's too sensitive or something, because Marvel is just a bunch of superheroes and in Star Wars it's like this sci-fi, fantasy, futuristic kind of thing, whereas G.I. Joe is like somewhat down-to-earth military figures. But then again, we have a bunch of ninjas and samurais and crazy like futuristic characters with neon bright ass colors. So I can't speak for the Joe team, but I don't know, I'm very surprised by, you know, not containing that kind of figure just yet. Joshua says fans hobby gridiron and ramen have luxury snow production, crowdfunding, and a narrow focus. Right. Yeah, I mean, that's because like collectors, they know what they want, and these other companies, they're kind of looking at what collectors want, and they're giving us that. Because if Hasbro, like, I understand that the G.I. Joe team wants to make it a bit diverse and do into snow characters and whatever, but if you realistically think about it, most collectors of G.I. Joe, even if you had a Snowcat as a kid, the Snowcat is really just it's a snow vehicle, but there's really not that many snow characters. it's not like you can use a Mauler or Mobat and then have a bunch of other Joe characters like all sit on it or ride on alongside with the vehicle with the vamp and etc. Because, you know, it's all like in green or like that yellowish color, and it's all like military, and it's like it has the whole army aesthetic to it. But when you have like a Snowcat, you know, it's like it's a white vehicle, right? And it's technically for the snow. Therefore, that's what makes it a bit an odd choice, because collectors would rather have, you know, even if it was CoverGirl's Wolverine, at least, or even the bridge layer, etc., at least it's green and it's in unison with the traditional Joe colors. And a lot of collectors want like that military style greenish, you know, vehicles that are more essential to like the original 13, and something that kind of gives it more of a like a GI Joe vibe. Whereas a Snowcat, again, it's I don't want to say it's niche, but you're trapping yourself in a bubble, because as we have here, because I like to stay updated in terms of the GI Joe figures, I took the liberty of creating a list of Arctic characters that we could have for the Haslab, or figures that can come out later on in the future to support the Snowcat if it happens to be that. So here on the right side of the screen, we can see here a lot of the Arctic characters that can be possibilities for being tiers in the upcoming GI Joe Haslab Snowcat. So let's quickly go over each one of them, and then we'll do the fun part after that. Give me 1 second. Okay, so we have Frostbite. Now, Frostbite is the actual character that comes with the Snowcat. Therefore, we know or should expect that Frostbite is in the part of the initial offering for the vehicle. So we should have no brainer for having Frostbite being in there, because we've seen, you know, Wild Weasel came with the Rattler, which was essential. We had Wild Bill come with the Dragonfly. Therefore, Frostbite with this vehicle Snowcat, very easy. So now you guys in the comments, let me know. Shout out to Outer Shelf Space, welcome to joining the chat. Says Yo Shark, Yo Out of Shelf Space. The tricky one here on this list is Iceberg. Now, a lot of collectors I've seen in the comments or even on the live streams, you know, you guys want an Iceberg. Now, the thing that makes it tricky is that, yes, Iceberg is an essential Arctic character, and he's very pivotal as well to the team of what I like to call the trinity of Snowdrop, Frostbite, and Iceberg. The thing that makes it tricky for Iceberg is that if there's two versions of Iceberg that I would find beneficial. You know, we have the original Iceberg, and then we have Iceberg that has the yellow ski mask. There is a version of Iceberg where he's wearing a white outfit, he has a yellow mask and yellow gloves, and that's a very possibility of giving us that kind of tooling, if that's even possible. And a lot of people who probably might or may not be able to buy or fund the next Haslab, you know, it's going to screw them over if they don't get if they're not able to get the traditional Iceberg that's going to be held behind a paywall for the Haslab. Therefore, that could screw them over and really upset them. So that's why Iceberg is kind of a very tricky character, because if they put the original Iceberg in this Haslab, which, you know, seems very ideal, but it may not go well with most of the collectors who don't get the Haslab or can't afford it. So unless they do like a retro version of an Iceberg, then that's very possible, but it is what it is. Then we have the character Blizzard, or there's the 1997 version of Blizzard, And the 1997 version of Blizzard he has like a beanie and an orange beard, and the outfit is a bit more standard, so it's like fine. But the classic or traditional Blizzard is more on he's got the ski poles, he's got I don't know how to explain it, this black ski accessory, kind of like a motor, whatever, and with the helmet, etc., etc. So like that version seems possible. Then we have two characters like Sub-Zero, Wind Chill, and then Cold Front is going to be a bit tricky because I believe Cold Front came with the vehicle, the Avalanche. Therefore, I don't know if if they don't do an actual Avalanche Haslab in the future, then Cold Front will be out of the question. Therefore, Cold Front is kind of like up in the air. Now, for those that collected G.I. Joes of any era or any brand, there's also a character called Whiteout. Now, if you owned that Whiteout character, that's from like I think the 2000. It's basically a snow job repaint. Therefore, I don't know if they would piss off collectors and do like another version of Snow Job and call it Whiteout, unless they do like unless they create a brand new character and call it Whiteout with a brand new design, then that could be another thing. Then we have another character that's named Avalanche, but he's part of the Battle Force 2000. I don't think they would dip into Battle Force 2000 by any means, so I think we can kind of cross that one off the list. But he does have that whole Arctic aesthetic to it with a brownish camo on him, so that could be pretty good. Then we have Quinn. Quinn is part of the comics. He came in issue number 2 of the Marvel Comics, and Quinn practically beat the shit out of like 5 Joes, especially outranked Snake Eyes in the stealth department. So look up Quinn. I think you guys might see Quinn could be a possible potential. Then again in the year 2000 for the Joe 2-packs, we had a re-release of Big Ben, which was an all-white uniform. Basically same exact mold, just in white and gray. So that's a very heavy possibility, seeing that we already have a NIGHTFORCE Big Ben. So giving us a snow or Arctic version of a Big Ben seems possible, just for them to reuse or recreate the same figure to kind of just pay off for the Haslab. Then we have a character named Snowstorm. I don't really know too much about, but I thought he was like fine. I don't think based off his aesthetic and design they will go for that one, but it's possible. And then the last one which is very, very possible because we've seen with the Haslab Rattler that Baroness was re-released as like the pilot version. So it's a very big possibility that we could have a re-release of a Joe character in a brown coat with like the fur collar. And we've seen that outfit a lot in the G.I. Joe cartoon, where a lot of the episodes were in the snow, and you see like characters wearing like the brown jackets. So there's a very good chance we could just see a re-release of a character that's previous waves, just in a more more traditional like brown coat, like just snow coat. So that might, I don't know how that would work. Sunder Ganesan, what's up? Thank you so much for joining in the chat. Lara V, shout out to Lara. How's it going? Says, thank you so much for the honoring my dad on your last live stream. I really appreciate you, my friend. We have celebration of life tomorrow. Thank you so much, Lara. I hope you are doing well. Hope you and the family are doing well. All my love and goes out to you and the family. So I hope you guys are all healing the best you can. Stay strong, and I don't know how to console you in this side, but that was hopefully that helped in any way possible. So thank you for even joining in the chat. I really do appreciate that, and I hope you're doing well, and give shout out to the missus as well. Tell her I said hi. But it's so nice to have you back here, Lara. Your presence has been missed. Ken Matinee says another Big Ben is a great figure. Rocky Bradley, welcome to the chat, says I would love to have a Quinn, but I'm not interested in the Snowcat. Okay, I mean that's fair. Sabotage says a Corp Snow team. So I would approve the Corp Snow team, but because we didn't get a like how the His tank had a 788 fire team, we didn't get anything similar with the Dragonfly. It's still early about a Rattler, like another 3 set of pilots or whatever, but we've seen they could do a snow team. It's just troopers, new characters, just like the Wolf Spider in NIGHTFORCE, very possible. Vil the Great, welcome to the chat. Thank you so much for joining with the shark emojis and the muscles. Joshua says, what? Hold on, I'm my chat got ruined. Sabotage says Lady J in a coat or someone we already have winterized. I would expect like Pilot Baroness. 100%. I agree with you, Sabotage. I don't know what the hell Zoran is saying. Robert says, what if we start a new sub-team of Arctic characters? I mean, you can, but again, look at the list that we have here. A sub-team will probably not last too long, but again, I guess, I don't know, like a sub-team with Arctic character, like, the only way they can pull that off is if they didn't do a Haslab for the Snowcat, then yes, then you could easily have a sub-team with, you know, Iceberg and all the other ones, but in Frostbite if they weren't going to do a Snowcat. But since that Haslab is happening, the sub team is going to be a bit difficult because other than Iceberg, I don't know what other characters they would create unless they do like Whiteout or I don't know if they would double dip with Big Ben, because again, if you look at how Cold Front is, his Cold Front and Blizzard's designs are a little bit more intense, so they would be like deluxe figures, I suppose. So that's also a possibility. Pixel Forge, welcome to the chat, says all vehicles of all figures should be drivers that won't get Haslabs. They blew this on the Rattler, could have had a bunch of Cobra pilots. Okay, someone correct me if I'm wrong. Strato Viper came with the Night Raven, right? Or was it another vehicle? That's what makes it complicated, right? Because you have so many pivotal vehicles that come with other pilots, but I don't know if the GI Joe team wants to mix and match other vehicle pilots with another. That's only if they aren't going to do like, let's say if they're never going to do a Night Raven, then obviously a Strato Viper would be ideal. But to incorporate a Strato Viper with a Rattler, that would basically piss off fans who want a Night Raven, because they'd be like, where the hell is, like, does that mean we're not getting one? So I think they really wanted to maybe put fans on their toes. I'm not sure. Hurricane, what's up, brother? Thank you so much for joining. Says Battle Force 2000, let's fight in the fuel depot. I can't wait for Battle Force 2000, man. I'm so excited for that. Sunder says I'd be down for an Arctic Big Ben. I mean, Big Ben in general has a very nice design and sculpt, but we've already gotten multiple, well, only one version of him, but not sure how fans would react for double dipping for 2 exclusive versions, because of NIGHTFORCE and then the Haslab version. Holonet says no Tundra, Ranger, Stalker. Oh, did I forget a Stalker figure? My bad. Okay, so we can... okay, sorry, I totally forgot about Stalker then. But let's just... We'll toss the Tundra, Ranger, Stalker in the Joe character department with the coat. But I thank you for letting me know about the Ranger Stalker. I forgot about that one. Zoran says, I'm not angry, I didn't order a Rattler. Sabotage says the gunner is useless. I'm selling mine. Well, I mean, I think let's see if I can remember correctly from my live stream from like last year. I think my thoughts on the gunner was it's a fine figure, but so the gunner to me resembles kind of how the tactician figure is for the his tank. So I think the gunner is fine. I think my problem was the pilot Baroness. I mean, she looks great. I've seen photos of people who already have reviews of it and posted their Haslab Rattler photos on either YouTube or, you know, Facebook. But I think the flight suit Baroness could have been another character, because if they already gave us a Baroness, that means that's like open season on all of our butts for them to give us like a Lady J in a brown coat, right? So that just opens up many opportunities at this point. But Sabotage says he's selling his. The thing is, like, how much would you sell a Rattler gunner for? Because it's like a standalone, like, gunner troop builder, or not really troop builder, but you know what I mean. So what would be the consensus of a price for that? Because it's not like it's a Glenda or it's like a NIGHTFORCE ripcord. It's like just a standard, you know, guy that sits in the cockpit, right? Or the gunner area. So Hollandnet says yes, other big Arctic vehicles are the Avalanche and the Blockbuster. Ooh. Hurricane says chill, get Refrigerator's family to sign on, I'll still buy it. I mean, Refrigerator would be pretty cool. So Couch Boy says tier 1 is Ice Cream Soldier, 2 is Quick Kick, no shoes or shirt like the first appeared, shooting the commercial barefoot and shirtless. I mean, if you want that version, you can just remove the little bandolier or the strap. Vanilla Ice figure, knee pads, life-size knee pads. Couch Boy's got jokes. Hold on here. So Robert Wantland says, Sabotage, I'll take you up on that offer. So Sabotage, if you want to sell your gunner figure to Robert Wantland, he might take you up on that offer. Zoran says Battle Force 2000 is the only subline. I mean, trust me, man, Battle Force 2000, can't wait. Rachel says, if they gave us the drivers, Windchill, Cold Front, and Whiteout, you could order 4 Snowcats and each one would have a different driver. Otherwise, these characters will never be released. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Again, that's what makes the Haslab very tricky, because these aren't characters you can necessarily army build. I mean, that's, I don't know, that just makes it like very confusing, because if you want to have multiple Snowcats, which is absolutely fine, but then you have multiple Frostbites, and then whatever the tiers are going to be, and if it's not like a troop builder, then you would most likely have to sell it, the additional characters, or maybe you can just keep it for value's sake. But I don't know, that's what makes it tough. Okay, hold on. Joshua says, I just this minute got noticed to expect Footloose and Darklon and got Snake R noticed earlier. Snake Armor. Congratulations, Joshua. Rocky Bradley says, I love the pilot Baroness because it reminds me of the issue 34 of the Marvel comic. Yes, so I do remember my initial thoughts when I was like, why did we need this Baroness? But then I did remember seeing a photo of the Baroness from the comic issue, so that's what makes it tough, or good in the sense of at least they're dipping into comics. So as we move on to the fun aspect of tonight's stream, also shout out to everyone. We've officially surpassed our goal for tonight's live stream. We hit 61 likes, so thank you guys so much for tuning in on tonight's stream. I appreciate it. Plenty more live streams to come, so thank you guys for joining in, and everyone who's watching that's not in the chat, thank you for joining in as well. And for those that are in the chat, you know, you guys are awesome, so thank you. So now let's have some fun. As in the next portion of tonight's topic or segment, we're going to talk about the Snowcat tiers, aka Sharks list. Hollandnet says you need to be rich to army build Haslabs. I mean, you would think, but there's a lot of people out there that still would buy like 5, or I think limit would be 5, right? So I still see people buy like 3 or 4. Nerd Alert, welcome to the chat, says he was 61. Good stuff. Thank you so much, Nerd Alert. Miles McDaniel, welcome to the chat, says the Retro Viper was a nice update. I think this is your first time here, Miles. Thank you so much for joining. Alright, so before we start the Sharks list of Snowcat tiers, I will advise this list is going to be 100% wrong. So don't take this list personally. If you guys disagree with me, that's totally cool. Write your thoughts down in the chat, and then we will see what the official verdict will be on Monday. But for now, this is merely just for fun, as I don't know. I'm trying to think more logically, but you know, the G.I. Joe team will probably do some wild cards, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. But again, this list again will be more my fantasy draft or tier list, and this will be based off of the characters that we see on the right side. So let's go ahead and begin the first one. Okay, so the first one we have here is obviously it's going to be the initial base offering, which is the vehicle and the actual figure. So this one will be roughly a no-brainer, I hope, as we have the Snowcat with Frostbite. So like I said before, we've had the traditional Wild Bill with the Dragonfly. We've had Wild Weasel with the Rattler. So seeing how Frostbite comes with the Snowcat, as you know, in general. So this seems more like a 99.9% accurate guess of what the Snowcat will, or who the Snowcat will come with, because if they don't include Frostbite with the Snowcat and decide to switch it up a bit and give us some random ass character, that's just going to be dumb on their end. So this has to be initial. Joshua says tier 2 is a keychain. Xeno Prime says tier 2 is mittens. I wouldn't even be surprised if they give us socks. Tier 2 should be socks. And like, for those that are fan of the Dumb and Dumber movie, that will just remind me of that scene where Jim Carrey was like, here, take my extra pair of mittens, and then Harry was like, you had an extra pair of mittens this whole time. So we should possibly get socks or mittens as one of them. Copy Joe Toys, welcome to the chat, says Frostbite is most likely to come with the Snowcat and maybe Lady J and Windchill. Alright, so Copy Joe's is stating his ground on that one. Zoran says Layla, Slave Girl. Oh god. Cliff Doc says, I think that they will use Quinn with Road Pig body. That's not a bad idea, but Cliff, how would you feel if they kind of reuse or retool, like what's his name, Bazooka's face? Because I feel like when I look at Quinn, I kind of see Bazooka in there with his mustache, or Mutton Junkyard's face, one or the other. Benny says, I thought they would stop doing tiers just like they do with the Ghostbusters Haslab card, just 2 versions. The thing with Ghostbusters, now correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not like the biggest Ghostbusters guy, but with Ghostbusters, you really just have the 4 main Ghostbusters, and then you have the girl with the glasses who's the receptionist, I forgot her name, and then you have that additional 5th Ghostbusters with the glasses, played by Rick Moranis. I forgot his name too. So, and that's about it, right? So it makes sense why the Ghostbusters would not actually have tiers, because no one would probably buy like, maybe you can have like a Stay Puft Marshmallow tier or a Slimer tier, but other than that, I wouldn't know what else they would do. Janine, there you go. Thank you, Will Newman. Robert says, did you notice that the Joe team barely mentioned the patches? So when I was watching the stream, I was kind of like, very interesting that they incorporated the patches on the actual figures themselves. So I think that makes it very clever in the sense of, okay, so the patches that we got are on the actual figure. But the thing that still makes it very weird or like stupid in the sense is like, would you feel proud knowing that you're wearing the same patch that Baroness is wearing on an action figure? Like how happy do you have to be knowing that like would you go to your friend's house and be like, oh cool patch, man, what does that mean? Oh, this action figure that I own at home wears it. I don't know. So anyways, so that is a base offering, pretty much no brainer there. Now for tier 1, now you guys in the chat let me know. Ken Mane, Janine, thank you. You guys let me know how you would want tier 1, but there's 2 ways to do it. Now, if you remember from the Haslab His Tank, they had the Tactician Driver, which was more of a bonus. I wouldn't consider it more of a tier, but it was like a bonus figure, roughly. So they could either have, like, in order for them to be like, if they know that the Haslab Snowcat is not going to be funded because it's a snow vehicle, what if they do one of those things where they say, we have to reach a certain goal within a certain time for this certain figure to be unlocked? So they could either do it that way, or they can automatically just give us a figure in tier 1, or just like how the His Tank was, the Tactician figure was something else, but then we got like the missiles, like accessories for the Snowcat, because the last 2 Haslab Rattlers, the last 2 Haslabs, the Dragonfly and the Rattler, all the additional add-ons and accessories were already included in the base offering, whereas the His Tank, the tiers had the treads and the canopies, but it also included the female gunner, and then we got the Cobra Commander. So there's multiple ways to look at this. However, for me to guess, tier 1, again, this is probably going to be 100% wrong, but tier 1 will probably be Windchill. Now, Windchill can still be a character, but maybe they can include him in the last tier, or maybe the second tier. So this could probably be way out of order. But I honestly think, or would hope, that Windchill would be a great tier, because he's not, I personally don't think he's a popular enough character to be bought like at Target or Walmart, so he could be peg warming like crazy. So in order to sell this version of a character, you might as well just throw him in a freaking Haslab. And I own the original Windchill figure. Let me go get him. Hold on. There we go. Alright, so I roughly came prepared. So for those that don't know who Windchill is, this is Windchill. It's probably not going to focus as much on screen. So this is Windchill. He's got the goggles, the white hat, he's got the mustache, and then he's got this really nice gray camo with the white outfit, and then he's got these gray pants, which are cool. His skis are actually I put away in a bag. But he actually has weapons on his actual skis to like shoot stuff. So this figure could be an ideal figure to have in the actual as a tier. It's not gonna freaking, yeah, it's not gonna zoom in or whatever, focus, but I think this figure would be pretty cool to have if possible. Okay, let me check out with the chat real quick, see what's happening. Hold on. Sabotage says he's not surprised. Sabotage says, I didn't watch the unboxing. Did they give us a reason for blowing off week 2 and 3? Nope. Of course they wouldn't do that. Copy Toy Joe Toy says that's more of a realistic idea. Quinn might come with a 2-pack, maybe an Arctic Scarlet. I mean, I don't know if they would put Quinn in a 2-pack, but maybe if they did like a sub Arctic team down the line, maybe a 2-pack, sure, with Scarlet, but hold on. Nerd Alert says, Shark, could you put some pics of these characters? I'm not keen on all these Avalanche slept on. Okay, hold on. So Avalanche is from the Battle Force 2000, so this is Avalanche right here. I deeply apologize that the camera is not focusing on these damn figures. I'm trying. But, so this is Avalanche. I don't think they would really throw this guy because he's part of the Battle Force 2000 era. Dang it, why doesn't this focus well? But, so this is Avalanche. And then there's also the vehicle called the Avalanche that comes with the character Cold Front. Unfortunately, I do not have a Cold Front. Figure because that figure is pretty expensive. But then we have Blizzard, which is right here, and Blizzard was also part of the G.I. Joe NES game. He was one of the characters you can play as. He's got this giant ass doofy helmet with the blue goggles, and then he has more of a redder, like brownish red umber color scheme with like the knee pads and the whites and the brown boots. The accessories on this figure is really, really great. So possibility, but if they sell him individually, it most likely will be like a deluxe. So that's a possibility there. So now this goes, and for those of you who don't know what Frostbite looks like, there's Frostbite. So Frostbite being alongside Snowjob is 100% needed. I don't know why like you would not have Frostbite anyway, so Frostbite with Snowjob definitely needed. Alright, so let's catch up with the chat. Antonio says, do a poll. If Cobra was a real organization, would you join? Hell yeah. Roland Max says, I'm going through a lot of G.I. Joe checklist app and they say it's a G.I. Joe what? Drive versus Cobra. Oh, Cobra G.I. Joe Driver versus Cobra Driver 169 available at Target. What y'all think? Oh, I have no clue. That sounds interesting. Hurricane says it's too risky. They need to show us all the tiers. Oh yeah, so that's another thing. They could either show us all the tiers as well, just like they did with the Rattler. Rachel says, I would like Windchill as a tier. Nerd Alert says, I love Windchill. Thanks for the image, says Andrew Law. Of course, man. You're absolutely welcome. Alright, so moving on to Tier 2. Now, Tier 2, now you can agree with me or disagree with me and let me know in the comments. And welcome Jay Gustafson on the chat. Thank you so much for joining. You can disagree with me on this one, but Tier 2 has to be a deep cut character. Now, the Hiss Tank didn't have a deep cut character, but you got the Tactician, which was out of 6 color schemes, you can vote on which one you want. But then the Dragonfly you got Glenda. Now Glenda was an Argentina release or exclusive or figure or whatever, so that made her like a super duper deep cut for those that didn't even know who Glenda was. And then, you know, she was basically scarlet and blue with blonde hair. So now the Rattler unfortunately didn't have like a deep cut character, but we had a gunner, and they lost out on the deep cut by either throwing a pilot Baroness or the patches. They could have eaten, you know, I'm not going to debate or argue on the prices, because, you know, they had to mix and match with the prices with the patches and the Rattler or whatever. Therefore, you know, they missed out on that opportunity to give us a deep cut. So now Quinn, I think, is probably the only best character as a tier, just because it adds an incentive, because the Joe team did say that in order to, you know, when you back the Haslab, there has to be a figure that's never going, that in their words, that's never going to be re-released. You know, they did say that, you know, Retro Cobra Commander was never going to be re-released, but at least not that version with the you know, the distorted logo, because we did get the original Retro one at some point. But Quinn seems, despite Quinn's popularity, if I were to think about Quinn as a character of seeing him on the pegs at Target or Walmart, sure, maybe online he could be sold out, but I think Quinn would peg warm like crazy despite how much of a popularity he has. And Quinn is probably the perfect example of being a figure where he's deep cut enough where it's a figure that a lot of people will feel like they have an exclusive figure in their Haslab funding. It kind of gives them an incentive of having like an exclusive figure that they're not going to re-release down the line. So that's why I personally feel Quinn is probably, in my personal opinion, is the best deep cut they can throw in there, because otherwise, I know, who is that? I think Russell Terrell says he doesn't want any more Snake Eyeses, but, you know, they could have easily tossed in Snake Eyes with a polar bear at that point, but thankfully they didn't. You know, the Snake Eyes with the radiation hands, thankfully that was its own deluxe type of figure, so, you know, throw that out of the way. So Benedict says Quinn was a bad guy most of the comics run. You know, I've seen people debate about Quinn's character of him being somewhat good and mostly bad, but for some reason, if I remember, even if he was associated more as a bad guy, he was kind of one of those characters that felt slight. He felt more like good and bad at the same time. Welcome Crimson Cobra Commander to the chat, says, hey Shark, I would actually say one of the tiers needs to be a woman character. We got a female characters each time. Okay, I mean, so we can throw in a female character. It's just I don't know what Arctic or Snow female characters there are, other than maybe a new female trooper or like a female character, or Lady J in a fur coat, right? I mean, unless Rachel knows, where's Rachel? Unless she can prove if there's a HoloNet says, how about Dana? I don't know who that is, sadly. I'm sorry. See, Sabotage says Rachel knows. Rachel says, I don't see Quinn as a tier. He was a Cobra mercenary, and this is a Joe Haslab. However, I don't know. I'm always on the fence with Quinn, though. Like, even though, yes, I do agree with what you're saying. Even if you substitute Quinn with another character, it would have to be a character that would either be, I don't know, Iceberg, Blizzard, or like Whiteout or Avalanche, Big Ben or Snowstorm. And again, but those are more like, because Cold Front again comes with the Avalanche vehicle, and then Blizzard it could either be the 1997 version, but Blizzard, his accessories are intense enough that they can easily release him as a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, just like how they did with Snow Job, because that's how many great accessories that Blizzard has. So that's one thing. We have Antonio says Lady J. Copy Joe says Quinn and Arctic Scarlet. Tagworm says Quinn was a bad guy with honor and morals. Okay, so Couchboy says a mercenary who switches sides, Quinn. Exactly. So that's why I added Quinn on here, because I always remembered he was like an on and off kind of dude, so that might work. If he was like a full-blooded Cobra, then sure, I wouldn't include it. Like, I didn't include Ice Viper or I don't know, some other characters, but like Quinn I always felt like was a balance of both. Benedict says Quinn could be a PulseCon exclusive like Starduster or Chuckles. That could work. That's true. Alan, welcome, says Figs will be Frostbite. 2 Sparta and Arctic gear covers both the deep cut and female requirements. Whiteout figure they probably never get to, sets up a retro card Snow Job. If 4th figure. My problem with Whiteout. My problem. Should I go get Whiteout? Okay, hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go get my Whiteout figure. Give me 1 second. See, this is why I don't need Google to send photos to some extent, because as a G.I. Joe collector, you got to have these figures on hand. So this is Whiteout. This is from the 2000 2-pack era. And then this is Snow Job. So I don't know if the screen is reversed on your end, but the one that I'm shaking right now is Whiteout, and then the other one is Snow Job. So you can see literally both exact same figures, just one has an orange beard and the other one has a brown beard. So therefore, that's why I feel like Whiteout would be a complete cop-out as a tier, because, you know, that would just mean you're basically getting Snow Job like 3 times if you want to get a retro version. Because if you have a Snow Job that's already the exclusive, and then you have Whiteout who's basically Snow Job 2.0, and then you have Snow Job as a retro version, then it's like you're kind of milking the cow too much at this point. So that's why I feel like having these, or Whiteout as an actual figure, unless they do like a Whiteout where it's a completely brand new mold and design, then hell yeah, I'm all for it. But if they do this exact version that's very similar to Snow Job, then I might have an issue with that. So that's that. And for those that don't know what Blizzard version 2 looks like from 1997, this is Blizzard version 2. I don't think it's gonna so this is Blizzard version 2. He's got the gray hat, he's got the orange beard, camo designs, etc., gray hat, mostly plain, not too much going on here. So this could easily be a tier or a character, whatever. It's possible. Not too sure, but it's very likely. 49er Brian and Ionic Blood, what's up? Thank you guys both for joining into the chat at the same time. And then we have Big Ben. For those who don't have the 2000 version of Big Ben, if you have the NIGHTFORCE version, that's cool, but this is the snow version that came in the 2-pack in 2000s. Therefore, this version could also be very likely, but I don't know how much they would double dip with Big Ben, as they already have the NIGHTFORCE one, and then the NIGHTFORCE one, I don't know if it's as accurate to the original colors, but it's close enough. But then you have this Big Ben version right here, which is roughly all white, same mold and everything, just mostly white. So huge possibility, but that's why I didn't really include those in the list for now. Sabotage says over 100 people right now. Is that true? Holy shit. Well, I jinxed it now because the numbers went, but it's all good. Wow. I think we hit a brand new milestone on the channel tonight. I think we had over at least 106 people tuning in. I'm sure the number's going to go down soon, but wow, here we go. Thank you guys, man. I really do appreciate it. Moccom says, bro, I've never seen those. I'm in diapers. Holland says, what about the polar shark driver from Rise of Cobra? I mean, the Rise of Cobra era was a little more when I kind of fell off of G.I. Joe at that point. I was still there, like I was keeping up to date, but I think I necessarily stopped collecting Joes around the Rise of Cobra, Pursuit of Cobra time. Robert says, so Whiteout is basically Old Man Snow Job. Yeah, I would say so. Rachel says, if they insist on a female figure, they'll do a dip into the Sunbow lore and do Arctic Scarlet or Arctic Lady J. Dana is a good option, but the October Guard ties might... Oh, okay, so you mean Dana from October Guard. Okay. Yeah, I don't think they would head into any October Guards at the moment. Rise of Cobra Arctic Shipwreck. Female Arctic Steel Corps says Holonet. Marquis, sorry, says the Arctic Shipwreck. Good options for sure. Female green shirt with a coat says Miles. I'm not sure about that one, but a female troop builder, possibly. I could see a female troop builder. Okay, so so I do remember Dana. I just totally like mind blanked in terms of October Guard, because that's a group that I don't really focus on in general. But holy shit, 49er Brian with $5. Thank you so much for the chat. Says Dallas Fort Worth tomorrow, bud. Need anything? Yeah, I actually do want something. I'm giving you a shark heart, and what I would want from you is to have a really good time on my behalf. Thank you so much for the $5 donation, 49er Brian. You could have, honestly, you can retract the $5. You can save it on a figure that you want to buy over there, man. You don't need to send me anything. It's all good, man. Thank you so much. Ionic Blood says, no Sergeant Stalker with a kayak tier. Is that the Sergeant Stalker that was from the Deke series, right? That's the one that tried to save Scoop at that point. Sabotage says that would be badass. Oh, what did he say? Oh, Ionic says, I have a feeling they would add a battle bear that comes out of the back of the Snowcat. That could be tough. Couch Boy says a snow body that you can put any head on to make a Snowcat figure would be cool. It could be everyone, like 4 bodies, 10 heads, make your own figures, swappable heads. That would be dope. But the question is, will Hasbro go that extent though? Robert says, hey Shark, do you have this Ice Storm figure in the chat is talking about? Ice Storm or a Snowstorm? I do not. Arctic says, Arctic Doc from Pursuit of Cobra. Oh shit. Eternitine Forever, welcome to the chat. I think this is your first time here. Female figure could be repainted Shooter or Helix too. Yeah, I mean, any that's why I have at the bottom of the list where it says Joe character in a coat. It could literally be any characters that you guys are talking about re-released in a coat, like how you guys are saying Shipwreck in a coat, or Lady J, or Scarlet Arctic version. Like any one of those can be, you know, good. or Holonet makes a good one. Arctic Bomb Strike. Bomb Strike could be very, very cool. I like the look of Cold Front, but gotta have them patches. Yeah, you know, I've been looking on eBay for a Cold Front figure. It's just that he comes with a, I think a microphone piece, and I do not want to buy a Cold Front without it. Like, I've seen loose versions of it, but it's not, I want to get that little microphone piece because that kind of makes the figure. F Your Feelings says, I like the look of Cold Front, but I gotta have them patches. First of all, I like your username, and thank you so much for joining in the chat. This is definitely your first time here because I would have remembered F Your Feelings. Nice name. Sabotage says, maybe Gridiron will drop a Battle Bear for us around that time. Also, I want to give a shout out to Sabotage and Crimson Cobra Commander. They do some G.I. Joe videos on their channel too, so if you want to check them out, go ahead and do so. If anyone else does it, I apologize if I don't say it, but let me know too. I would love to see an Arctic Cover Girl. I mean, we've already gotten 2 Cover Girls at this point. I don't know if we'll get an Arctic one yet. I think that might be pushing buttons. But then again, they've already gave us so many Baronesses in the Flight Pilot one. I mean, the Pilot one would, you know. Mawcom says that's the channel. I mean, you can just click on their name. Snowcat, Ionic Blood says Snowcat still boggles my mind. It wasn't a big vehicle. I don't know. Yeah, I remember you saying, Ionic Blood, that the Snowcat wasn't as big as a vehicle, but then I have people saying, that it was roughly the same size as the original HISS tank, but then they are just gonna blow it up or expand it to make it bigger. Joshua says we're about 4 away from 90 likes, which would be 1.5 times Shark's goal. Yeah, I mean, eventually if I get to like 5,000 subscribers, then I think my goal would be like 100 likes from the get-go, but you know, the channel is still pretty small, so we're gonna make our way up. Crimson says the Snowcat is bigger than the HISS. See, the thing is, like, I never owned the original HISS tank or Snowcat because for you guys that are watching at home or listening or whatever, when it came to G.I. Joe vehicles, my parents were like, you either get vehicles or you get characters. So I always lean toward characters rather than vehicles. So my collection for vehicles is very, very like 1 or 2. So that's why I don't have much knowledge in terms of size comparisons for vehicles. So I appreciate you guys helping me out. Russell says the HISS wasn't that big either, but Hasbro added more to it to make it bigger, so I'm sure they will do the same for the Snowcat. Charles, welcome to the chat. I like your default photo of Mega Man. That's awesome. It just reminds me of the Mega Man select screen, or the intro. Cliff says, do you think that the Blind Woodsman would be on the list? We could use the Blind Woodsman, but then you would need like his sled, or the sleigh, or whatever you call it, the sled with the wolves or the dogs or whatever, and then that would go hand in hand with the Snake Eyes figure, but I don't know if that would work per se. I mean, they could do it. It's not I wouldn't rule it out. 49er says, I'm not excited for a Snowcat. It's summer. Yeah, so 49er is absolutely right. That's another thing. To talk about a wintered vehicle in the summer is mind-boggling. Okay, so then we have Tier 3. Tier 3, I'm going to, again, you can tell me if I'm wrong or if you disagree, agree, whatever in the chat. Tier 3, I'm going to head for Sub-Zero. Now, for those who don't know who Sub-Zero is, forgive me because I recently did a review on this on the Retro Shark channel. I have to edit the video. That's why I have all these Arctic characters out here. I recently just recorded a video. But this is Sub-Zero, and his O-ring broke, so I apologize. But if you could focus... So this is Sub-Zero. He's got the blue hood with the gray hat underneath, and he's got the light blues. And he's got some grenades and some knives in the pouches and stuff like that in the sheath. So I think Sub-Zero would be a pretty decent, tier. Maybe a lot of you will not agree with me on this one, because I think there's also another version of Sub-Zero that you guys might want. But actually, now that Crimson Cobra Commander mentioned it, yeah, I don't know if do they have permission to use Sub-Zero, because it's already a Mortal Kombat character. So will NetherRealm Studios file a cease and desist on Hasbro, or will they change the name of this character? It's very possible. Again, his O-ring broke, so I apologize, but this is kind of how Sub-Zero looks in his full body glory. It's a pretty nice. I do like the light blues though. It does look well for an Arctic character. He comes with those snowshoes and stuff like that, and yeah, it looks pretty good. I think again the head sculpt, you can really just kind of use your imagination and say, all right, it's very similar to Snow Job, but again, the light blue hood would really be pretty badass in my opinion. So I would like this. Ooh, shout out to Mr. Samson. Welcome to the chat. Mr. Samson says, or aka Santa Samson says, the only Sub-Zero is from Mortal Kombat. Very true. HoloNet says, by the time we get the vehicle, it will be winter. Well, the vehicle, the Snowcat will go up for funding in July, mid-July. Therefore, in 2026, we should see, just like the Rattler, we should see the collectors getting theirs in possibly June at this point. Robert says, thank you so much for the visual aids. A lot of these characters came out after my time. Yeah, I mean, the thing about being a G.I. Joe collector is a lot of times I buy characters that I think just look cool in general. I don't have a specific, like, era or years. Like, if they look, I mean, obviously I have the original run of some characters. Like, I still don't have most of the original 13, which is fine, but I have, like, various other versions, like the ones that are more similar to, like, the cartoon style or the main staples, you know, but, like, the OG 13 is a bit more expensive, and you know, but I have a good bunch of them. It was a joke, says Mr. Sampson. Tagworm says Sub-Zero always looked like he was wearing a shower. Yeah. Really. Sabotage says, what's the price? Yes, we Cobra Commander, we talked about that earlier, but yes, we'll get back to that in a bit. All right, so who mentioned it in the chat? I don't know where it was. Somebody mentioned about the price. So if you guys are still in the chat right now, let me know in the comments or the chat, what do you think the price will be for the Snowcat? Because again, this will be the first Haslab during tariff season, right? So it could very well be like a 300-esque price point, but I would not be surprised if it shoots up by another $100. Or if it's a $230-something Haslab, I would not be surprised if its cost is like $300, you know, because they have to boost up the prices for that. So, and again, if you go on Hasbro Pulse or if you go to Big Bad Toy Store, a lot of their prices, they tell you that it excludes the price of the tariffs. So we have to be very mindful of that. So Cobra Commander says 275 to 300. Copy Joe says 250 to 300. HoloNet says 300. Mr. Samson says close to 400. Will Newman says 300 and up. 49er says 250. I mean, I would love it to be 250, but I feel like in this, if they can pull off 250, that would be great. If not, I wouldn't be surprised. Benedict says 325. Joshua says, since it's crowdfunded, they have to have cost up front, right? Well, actually, that's a very valid point. All right, you guys help me out here, because Joshua makes a valid point. If it's crowdfunding, does that mean they're gonna put the cost of the Haslab after it's funded with tariff prices, if they even know what it is? Or do you think that they're not going to include the tariff price, whatever the hell that is, and they're going to have the initial offering? Because how would you guys feel if, let's say it's around 250 or 300, right? And you guys are like, oh, that's really great, I'll fund it. But then by whenever the thing gets, whenever your card gets charged, but then again, they can't increase the price after it gets charged, right? Because then that's against the code of honor. See, now that makes it very tricky, because Cliff says, was DJ discussed? No, I did not include DJ on the list. My bad. No way I'm spending 200 on this, says 49er. Ionic Blood says Frostbite sucks. I mean, even if you don't want Frostbite, we have Iceberg right here, right? Look how great this figure is. Probably in my top like 10 GI Joe figures. I absolutely love Frostbite. I mean, sorry, Iceberg. But again, this character is really popular, right? So to include this character inside a Haslab tier is genius, but it would also piss off collectors for those who don't buy an Iceberg. Now again, you can have the variant version of Iceberg with the yellow mask, but then I don't know how you guys, I don't know, it's kind of like up in the air. This is I think for the first time in my Haslab or my GI Joe channels that I've done, this is probably the first time where this Haslab is completely throwing me off, just because it's not a traditional like GI Joe green army vehicle. It's not like a classic Cobra vehicle, etc. But this is like a snow vehicle, and there's not a lot of snow characters, and it just throws me off as to how they're gonna pull off the tier segment. Thunder Machine would make better use of lights and engine fire effects. So if Mr. Samson is still here, Hurricane says a Thunder Machine would make a better use of lights. Do you agree? Santa Samson says Pulse has free shipping. They need to make that cost up somehow. I see. Joshua says exactly. You get charged as soon as it funds. If they surcharge fans a year later, there would be big complaints. I see. Crimson says, I think the Snowcat is more popular than people think, and I believe it will sell. Well, I do want to emphasize that I have no doubt or deny that this won't be funded. Like, any Haslab vehicle is going to fund regardless. So I have no doubt that this will this will sell out, or like it'll get 100% funded. The excitement part for me is really just knowing the tiers, and I don't know, like just knowing the tiers and the characters it's gonna come out with. Because at this point, aside from the O-ring Sky Striker that didn't fund the final tier, which was those ground crew ketchup and mustard figures, but that was O-ring, so a lot of people, I guess, don't really care about that. But with classified, right, that's the hard hitter, so people will even if it has like a slow start, or sorry, like a slow midway through or whatever, like we know it's going to get funded, because you have people who don't fund it till the very end. You have people who don't fund it till international collectors as well. So again, so you have to utilize all those people as well. So this would make it, what is it, the fifth successful GI Joe Haslab campaign. Whereas again, if you just exclude the O-ring Sky Striker, this would be the fourth successful Haslab campaign to be 100% funded, which is, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the only brand that Hasbro has that actually funded all its Haslabs, I think. It's the third? No, because you have the Hiss Tank, you have the Dragonfly, you have the Sky Striker, and then you have the Rattler, and now the Snowcat. So we're technically at 5 Haslabs now. Holonet says, would the BET from the 87 movie be considered an Arctic vehicle? No, because the BET, they just brought it to the Arctic because they used it just for energy wise, because it's probably the safest terrain to use it on, but I don't think it's technically considered an Arctic vehicle, because when you're surrounded by mountains and stuff, like, you're not really harming anything. But Sabotage says I was a premium for Rattler and paid shipping. Yeah, the Sky Striker was for the O-rings, which is true, but it's still considered part of the Haslab campaigns, right? So, and it still was funded. Just the last tier didn't get funded, but again, that's because it wasn't classified. It was for the O-rings. But yeah, so other than that, let me quickly, what am I gonna do here? Okay, so other than, obviously I don't have an O-ring Quinn figure, but you guys can let me know in the chat. These are the 2 tiers that I have listed right now, Windchill and Sub-Zero. Are these 2 figures you guys see becoming tiers, or do you disagree and think that Hasbro will give us better looking characters, or not essentially these, or do you think we're going to get a female Joe with a brown coat? Because I think, aside from Quinn, and Avalanche is a Battle Force, and Blizzard and Cold Front they look cool enough to be their own exclusives, like for Pulse. I think these 2 will probably be my best bet for tiers, aside from Frostbite. So where's Frostbite? So I'm gonna say, before Monday's fan stream event, these are my guesses for next week. So we have Sub-Zero, Windchill, and Frostbite as the initial offering. So I could be 100% wrong, and none of these will be tiers, but I think these, I hope, or I don't want to say I hope, but I'm guessing these other 2 figures will be tiers, and then with Frostbite as initial offering and Quinn as the deep cut. But I'm pretty sure I will be wrong in at least 2 out of 4. Therefore, yeah. But otherwise, I think these will be my predictions and my best bet for the Haslab tiers. Otherwise, I'll be damned if it's anything different than what I'm expecting. Okay. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to the people in the chat who talk amongst who are talking to other subscribers and collectors of the channel. That actually makes me extremely happy, because it just shows that we have a very strong Nick, Joe, or collecting community. So it's not just about like me. I feel really like good knowing that you guys are also talking to other collectors in the chat as well. So I really do appreciate you guys building friendships this way as well. So shout out to all you guys who are also just having your own conversations in the chat. That just makes it badass. I love it. Still kicking myself for not picking up the Blockbuster in my local toy show. Damn. How much does that go for, Hollinet, on eBay? Sith Lord Style, welcome to the chat, says they could do, I think this is your first time here, what Mondo is doing and add a verbiage that is subjected to an unspecified tariff surcharge, so next year when it ships you have to pay some unknown tariff. Yeah, but I don't know if people want to be in that unknown category though. Robert says the one in your left hand looks cool. I got the version 11. Well, no, sorry. Elevate me to the higher human form. Nice username. Says, I got the version 2 green wind chill. He looks better on that color with his machine gun motor mountain ski. Yeah, I love wind chill's, I guess that's what you call it, mounted, machine gun mounted ski. I love that thing. Mr. Sampson says they could really make some cool updates with the Arctic characters, hoping they do them right. I agree. I definitely think Windchill is one Sub-Zero or Cold Front. Yeah, again, if you guys Google like Cold Front and Blizzard, they are very good looking characters. It's just Cold Front comes with an Avalanche vehicle, so I don't know if they would sacrifice that. And then Blizzard has enough accessories, whereas Blizzard, this doof right here has enough accessories to be its own Pulse exclusive, like how Snowjob is, because he comes with like all those white weapons, those white guns and etc. Then he comes with the skis, and then the backpack that has the handles, which can be used as a sled. So I don't think that would be for a tier, but again, it's very possible. Paul D, welcome to the chat, says Glenda in a winter coat. Dude's got jokes. Joel Gonzalez says, I think Quinn, Windchill, and a female Lady J. Okay. So a lot of people are saying either female or winter coat Lady J or winter coat Scarlet. Crimson Cobra Commander says Tiger Force Blizzard. That would be interesting. For what's happening here? Crimson says last time we got a Night Force, we might get Tiger Force this time. You know what? That is true. The Dragonfly did come with a Night Force, 2 Night Force characters, so it's very possible. Odds Mods, welcome to the chat, says, how many other people use their white blankets, towels, and pillows as snow terrain as kids? I did. 100%. That's the beauty of imagination when you have... Alright, I'm gonna do the impossible. Hopefully none of these figures break. If you guys are subscribed to my my Retro Shark channel, where I'm reviewing G.I. Joe O-Ring figures, hold on. If I can do this correctly, these are all the snow characters that I have here. in front of me that I reviewed on the channel, but I have to edit the video. But it so happens to be just in time for the Snowcat. So you can see there's just so many other Joe Snow characters in this line. Again, I'm missing Cold Front, which sucks, but one day I'll get him. So yeah, I mean, it just it all comes in handy at this time when I'm doing the video, because I would rather show you guys the figures than use Google. But yeah, so let me see here, what else do we have? Okay, so that pretty much concludes the tier segment of the stream. So let's just get rid of all this real quick, and let's quickly go back to the what's next portion, because hopefully we will be adding the tiers by July. If not, maybe they'll give us all the tiers on June 30th. So expect to see 3 figures at most added to this list for digital renders, which will be very exciting. So as you can tell or see here, we've got a lot of figures crossed off the list. The Cold Slither 4-pack will be available in July for San Diego Comic-Con. The NIGHTFORCE, BEACHHEAD, and QUICKKICK will be available for Walmart's CollectorCon in July, so stay tuned for that. The Police Officer, God knows where the heck that Legacy series figure will be up for pre-order, but still be determined. And then when it comes to name onlys, there is obviously nothing new to add, because we still have Desert Scorpion and Steel Core Sentry with the defense post. Hopefully, maybe on Monday, aside from the Haslab Snowcat, we could get Wetsuit Flash, Night Viper, or Sci-Fi render reveals, but I don't think that's going to be possible. Maybe name onlys, I don't know, but possibly not. I don't know. It's very up in the air. Maybe they'll just focus completely on the actual Haslab itself. Taurus and Reddog, we'll see at that point. But again, we'll update this list on Monday or whenever I do the next live stream, so stay tuned for that. But other than that, so this Monday, for those who are joining or did not see the post Hasbro Pulse did, this Monday, on Alan, man, you have some great timing. On Monday, June 30th, we have the official Haslab reveal, so expect a SHARKNEWZ video, and then of course I'm going to go live to talk about the Haslab figures. So if you guys are, I don't know what day I'm going to go live, but you know, save your thoughts for that, because it's going to be a heavy ass day when we talk about the because again, it can be a hit or miss. We could have some great characters, we can have characters that are complete ass, or we can have mittens or socks or gloves as tiers. We don't know. That's what makes it fully exciting. My only complaint, I would have to say, is that we technically waited an entire week for a Haslab announcement, and then the stream that they just, or the video they just did, they said tune in next week for the reveal. So it's like basically waiting, like it's like you wait a week and then they tell you we'll come back again next week and then we'll tell you. So that's what makes it, you know, but that's what makes it annoying to me. But either way, this Monday we will see the official Haslab reveal. I will have a SHARKNEWZ video, and I will have I will go live talking about all the tiers, if they reveal anything or whatever, which should be very exciting. So I don't know, this will be a very, very interesting Monday. I can't wait to see what's going to happen, and I'm very excited to see what characters they do and don't do. Maybe we'll be excited, maybe we're all going to be pissed, maybe the pricing will not be great, or maybe it's gonna be something we're all gonna be like, holy shit, like that's probably the best Haslab we've seen. HoloNet, yes, this Monday, June 30th, is the brand new Haslab reveal, so stay tuned for that. Ionic Blood says teaser for a teaser trailer to the official trailer, stay tuned. Yes, you're absolutely right. Later, Cobra Commander, thank you so much, brother. Russell says, I hope they reveal fully painted prototype and not grayscale version. Yeah, I hope it's not like some weird like sketch or something. I want to see like, maybe, I mean, it's too soon to have photography, obviously, like that's way too early, but at least how they did the render reveals for the Dragonfly, or even Rattler, I suppose, like with the cool graphics, and it has like the lock key with the red and says target goal X amount of funding to be unlocked, etc. Like that would be very exciting for me. Say no to patches. Hell yeah. All right. So other than that, I'm going to conclude by going back to my list here, so you guys can take a look at this list one last time and see how much I got wrong, how much I got right. Who knows, maybe I'll probably get one right out of 4. Maybe I'll get all of them wrong. Who knows? But at this point, it's going to be it's going to be a very exciting time. Therefore, I want to thank you guys all for watching. I will have another live stream, maybe 2 live streams next week. I don't know, but I will talk about the Haslabs. Stay tuned for a SHARKNEWZ video, and then I don't know, shit's about to go down this week, so stay tuned for that. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. We've hit the new milestone of over 100 views on tonight's stream, and thank you for all the likes. I appreciate it. And to everyone, have a happy weekend. Enjoy collecting, hug your loved ones, and it's going to be a great Haslab reveal. So to everybody, thank you so much for joining in the chat, and those who are watching. I love everybody. Thank you guys so much for making the stream fun. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be enjoying what I do. Thank you guys. I will see you guys all in the next live stream and the SHARKNEWZ video. Take care. Hug your loved ones. Eat some really great food. And I will see you all in the next live stream. Shark Attack and YOJOE.